Hello, welcome to episode 46 of live.withcode.uk. We're continuing a series on turtle graphics in Python. Last week we looked at grayscale images, and this week we are going to look at color images, but color images with a color palette. So far I've avoided talking about football, but my students made me promise that we'd have a Euros 2020 theme this week. So we are still loading image data from a file. Last week it was grayscale images, so numbers between 0 and 255, which represents a shade of grey. So 0 would be black and 255 would be white, or anything in between. This week we're loading in colours as numbers, and then those colours are from a colour palette. So we've got a list here that represents what all of those colours are. And because tomorrow evening we've got the England-Denmark game, my uncle lives in Denmark, I live in England, so quite exciting to have a semi-final between those two countries. By the time you're watching this, you'll probably know the score of that game, and there may be another game coming up, or it could be time for the Olympics. So you might want to change these to be different countries. And to do that, you can change the numbers and put additional colours in if you want. So if you wanted a yellow in here, then that would be 0, 1, 2, 3. Let's put a yellow pixel in the corner of the English flag. Let's have a look. Can't run a text file. That's better. So I've drawn them upside down. You can tweak the code if you wanted to draw them the right way up, but you get the idea. So this week I'm not going to explain all of the code. I know it's live.withcode.uk, and the whole idea is to have live coding videos to explain how these work. But I think it would take too long to show the story from start to finish, and I'm not convinced that many people watch the whole videos anyway. So let me just explain how this works. So we've got the entry point down at the bottom, which loads a English flag from a text file. That function, load flag, will create a new one-dimensional list, but it will then put that one-dimensional list inside it. Will put additional lists. So we end up with a 2D list inside flag. So what does that mean? Well, we load the file, we split the file contents every time we have a new line. So this is going to be a 1D list. Then we loop through that 1D list to extract all of the color data. So we split it now whenever we have a comma. So although this is a text file, it's actually also a CSV file. We split a line every time we have a comma. So we'll end up with a list. And then we'll put that image data inside a list called row after converting the strings into integers, because we want to be able to use them as indices of our color palette. And then we put that row list inside our flag list, so that flag becomes a list of lists, or a two-dimensional list, or a 2D array. So that loads the flag data. And then we draw the flag data, so we can pass in a 2D list. We've got the width, the height, the x and y coordinates, and the width and the height. So that calls draw flag. So we've got these parameters here. First of all, we need to work out the dimensions of our flag, so it should work with whatever sizes you put into these text files. You can put in as many as you like, as long as they're rectangles. You can't have one that is longer than the other, otherwise it will probably crash. So how does this work? So then we've got a nested for loop in here, so a for loop inside a for loop. Notice that we can't use the same variable for indexing here. We have to have separate ones. So the outer loop here goes through each of the x coordinates in our range of columns that we've calculated here. And our inner loop goes through each of the y coordinates. Then we can work out the number from our flag 2D list. So the first index is the y, the second index is the x coordinate, and I've used I underscore here for the index of the color, so this is going to be a number. What number depends on what you've got in your text file, so we're going to load in a 0. Then we want to use that 0 or that number to work out what actual color we mean. So we've got a global constant called colors, it's a list, so that 0 is then looked up to be white. And then we can set the color. Okay, now this here, going to the start point, where we lift up the pen, we go to the start point specified by these parameters, and then we move forwards the x coordinate. So we calculated the width of the pixel up here, So that's the width of the flag divided by how many columns we've got. So we move forwards however long we need to along the x-axis, and then we rotate to go up the y-axis and move forwards however long we need to go up on the y-axis. This is a rather bizarre way of doing it, but it's necessary so that we can tilt the flags and it still works. If you just teleport to the x and y coordinates directly, then the flags don't really work at an angle. Then we can just draw a filled-in rectangle in whatever colour we need, and repeat that for whichever flag. So there's a couple of challenges to work through. You can change the colours on line 2 to work on your own colour palettes. This is a little bit like a GIF file, which has a limited number of colours. A GIF has a maximum of 256 colours to play with. This code, you can put as many colours as you like into this list, and each one can be then put into your own text file, just as a number on here. Or another challenge is just use t.write to maybe write England versus Denmark, something like that. Okay, so remember that you can access the free online resources via live.withcode.uk or in the description underneath this video. Or if your school signed up for the free weekly challenges, then you can compete against your classmates and the teacher can track your scores. So sorry not to talk you through the decisions behind the code in a live coding way from start to finish, but I hope this gives you enough information to understand the code that's there. All right, see you next week. All the best. Bye-bye.